What if the only person you ever truly spoke to was your reflection? What if your voice was locked away behind the silence of a promise too deep to break until one of you had to die? Today's story isn't just a psychological mystery. It's a haunting journey into the minds of two sisters who spoke only to each other, lived in a world of their own, and made a dark pact that shocked the world. This is the tragic, chilling true story of June and Jennifer Gibbons, the silent twins. Make sure you're sitting comfortably, because once we enter their world, it's hard to leave. They were born on April 11th, 1963, in the small town of Haverfordwest, Wales. Two identical twin girls, June and Jennifer Gibbons. The children of Caribbean immigrants who had come to the UK seeking better opportunities, only to settle into a cold, unwelcoming world where their daughters would be the only black children in their school. From the very beginning, something was different about the girls. As toddlers, they spoke late, and when they finally began to talk, it was only to each other, and in a rapid, musical, and nearly indecipherable dialect that baffled teachers and even their own parents. As they grew, their bond became inseparable, impenetrable, and eventually troubling. The twins would mirror each other's movements, walk in perfect synchronization, eat at the same time, and maintain complete silence around everyone else. Bullied for their skin color, their strange behavior, and their incomprehensible language, June and Jennifer retreated further into their own world, refusing to speak with teachers, classmates, or even their family, shutting everyone out except for each other. Psychologists were baffled. Some labeled it selective mutism. Others saw signs of a shared psychosis. But nothing could explain how two brilliant girls could be so detached from reality and so totally interdependent. At age 11, they were finally separated by school authorities in hopes of breaking their isolating cycle, but the experiment failed miserably. Each twin fell into a deep, catatonic depression. One even stopped moving entirely for weeks. Once reunited, they emerged more bonded and more secretive than ever. Instead of speaking aloud, they turned to writing. In their teenage years, June and Jennifer produced hundreds of stories, poems, and novels typed on old manual typewriters. Their work was strange, imaginative, and filled with themes of violence, sexual obsession, power, and control. June's novella Pepsi Cola Addict was about a boy seduced by his teacher and institutionalized. Jennifer's stories, like Discomania and The Pugilist, portrayed young men drawn into lives of crime, addiction, and death. The twins dreamed of literary success, but their fantasies soon bled into reality. In the early 1980s, still teenagers, the girls began committing crimes, vandalism, shoplifting, and eventually arson. In one particularly alarming incident, they set fire to a tractor dealership and watched with fascination as firefighters struggled to contain the blaze. Their growing criminal behavior led to their arrest in 1981, and rather than being placed in a juvenile facility, they were sentenced to indefinite detention at Broadmoor Hospital, Britain's most notorious high-security psychiatric hospital, known for housing serial killers and the criminally insane. What was supposed to be a 6-month sentence turned into 11 long years. Broadmoor, with its locked doors, heavy medication, and complete isolation, should have broken their bond, but it didn't. Despite being held in separate cells, the twins found ways to communicate in whispers, body language, and letters. Nurses and staff were terrified of them. At times, they would suddenly break their silence in chilling synchrony, bursting into laughter or sobs at precisely the same moment in separate rooms. Their diaries, discovered during treatment, revealed the true depth and darkness of their relationship. Both girls wrote obsessively about their love, their hatred, and their inability to live independently. Jennifer wrote, "We have become fatal enemies in love," and June echoed the sentiment with chilling clarity. "One of us is plotting to kill the other. If I die, it will be her fault." At times, they fantasized about being normal, famous, or married, but always, the theme returned. Only one of them could survive in the real world. Journalists began to take notice, most notably Marjorie Wallace, who gained the girls' trust and chronicled their bizarre and heartbreaking journey in a groundbreaking series of articles. Over time, Wallace came to believe that Jennifer had assumed a dominant role in their dynamic, controlling, manipulating, and even terrifying June. The twins confessed to her that they had made a pact. One of them would have to die so the other could be free. It sounded metaphorical until it wasn't. In March 1993, after 11 years at Broadmoor, the hospital agreed to transfer them to a less restrictive facility called Caswell Clinic. On the day of the transfer, something strange happened. Jennifer, normally strong and composed, began to act sleepy, disoriented, and weak. During the car ride, she rested her head on June's shoulder and said, "At last, we're out." Hours later, she was dead. The cause? Acute myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle, with no warning signs, no drugs, and no trauma. Doctors were stunned. Jennifer Gibbons was only 29 years old and had shown no prior health issues. To this day, her death remains medically unexplained. But June's transformation was even more startling. From the moment of Jennifer's passing, June began to speak, first to doctors, then to staff, then to her family. Her voice, once locked in silence, now flowed freely. She explained to Wallace, tearfully and plainly, that Jennifer had chosen to die so she could live. It was, she believed, a sacrifice, a final act of love and release. For the first time in her life, June began living independently. She eventually left the clinic, got an apartment, made friends, and lived quietly in Wales, far from the eyes of the press. She never reoffended. She occasionally gave interviews, always reflecting with both grief and relief. She once said, "I'm free at last. Jennifer gave up her life for me." The story of the silent twins remains one of the most haunting psychological enigmas of modern history. It has inspired documentaries, books, plays, and even an opera. Scholars still debate whether they were victims of an overzealous mental health system, products of racial and social isolation, or something deeper, an extraordinary case of folie à deux, or shared delusion. Their diaries remain a stunning literary artifact, raw, poetic, tragic, and terrifying. But what makes their story endure is not just the mystery, or the crime, or the tragedy. It's the unbreakable bond between two sisters who loved each other so fiercely they could not exist apart. Some see Jennifer's death as the tragic result of a failed system. Others see it as a supernatural mystery. How could one twin die the moment they were separated, from a condition she had never shown symptoms of? But to June, it was never a mystery. It was always their plan. One would die, and the other would live. And now, with her sister gone, June remains, the last voice of a story too strange for fiction and too sad to forget. If this story moved you, don't let it vanish into silence. Like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves true crime and mysteries as much as you do. This was Evidence Echo. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and never ignore the quietest cries. They often carry the loudest truth.